30 years ago, audiences sat in darkened cinemas and watched a scene that burned itself into collective memory. Dennis Nedry, a heavy-set computer technician in a yellow raincoat, is trying to escape Jurassic Park, and he runs straight into a dinosaur that looks like an overstuffed turkey. The animal is small, vividly colored, fans a wide neck frill like an iguana in a fever dream, and then it spits directly into Nedry's face. Cut to black. Millions of viewers walked out of that theater believing they now knew exactly what Dilophosaurus looked like. Here is something most people have never been told. In Michael Crichton's original 1990 novel, the Dilophosaurus that kills Dennis Nedry is a completely different animal. It still kills him, but Crichton's version is approximately 6 meters long. Sleek, fast, dangerous. Nothing at all like the frilled puppet Spielberg put on screen. And the most remarkable thing about that? Crichton was significantly closer to the truth. Because the real Dilophosaurus was no turkey. It was one of the largest land predators ever to walk the North American continent, an animal that dominated its world roughly 130 million years before Tyrannosaurus rex was even a distant evolutionary possibility. Anyone who knows this creature only from Jurassic Park barely knows it at all. Dilophosaurus wetherilli lived approximately 193 million years ago, during the early Jurassic. Adults reached body lengths of around 5 to 6 meters, with a hip height of roughly 1.7 to over 2 meters. Body mass estimates fall somewhere in the range of 400 to 450 kilograms, comparable to an adult grizzly bear, though far more slender and elongated. It was no colossus in the later mold of Allosaurus or Torvosaurus, but for its era it stood at the uncontested apex of the food chain. Its most arresting feature was the pair of parallel bony crests running lengthwise along its skull, elegant looking, but more robust than they appear, as the landmark 2020 monograph by Adam Marsh and Timothy Rowe made clear. That study substantially revised the older picture of a fragile, delicate-jawed scavenger. The jaws were stronger than long assumed. The crests more structurally substantial. Dilophosaurus was not a scrounger at the margins of its ecosystem, it was the ecosystem's ruling predator. Its teeth were sharp and recurved, engineered like hooks to grip and hold flesh. The skull, despite its size, was relatively lightly built, perforated by fenestrae that reduced overall weight without sacrificing strength. The body was long and lean, the hind limbs powerful and built for sustained locomotion, the tail long and counterbalancing. Every aspect of this anatomy speaks of an active, mobile hunter. Now imagine the world this animal moved through. Picture the American Southwest, then strip away everything familiar. No desert highways, no saguaro cacti, no bleached sandstone mesas. Instead, seasonal floodplains where broad rivers swelled to roaring torrents after summer rains, flanked by dense stands of horsetails, tree ferns, and early conifers. Sand dunes pressed in from the north. During the dry season the land smelled of resin and hot stone. In the wet season it transformed into a warm, layered wilderness of green. The Kayenta Formation dates to roughly 196 to 183 million years ago. Pangaea was still breaking apart and the climate was warm and markedly seasonal. Small armored Scutellosaurus picked their way between fern roots. Slender theropods like Megapnosaurus kayentacati, barely the size of a large dog, hunted in riverbank shadows. Early sauropodomorphs such as Cerosaurus and Anchisaurus grazed along the watercourses. Crocodilomorphs lurked in murky shallows. Tiny early mammals moved through the leaf litter after dark. Lungfish breathed in stagnant pools. In this world, Dilophosaurus was not among several large predators. It was the large predator. Limb proportions suggest an animal built for sustained locomotion rather than explosive short-range sprinting, a pursuit predator capable of maintaining pace over distance. The forelimbs were long and carried powerful, hooked claws well suited to gripping prey. Jaw musculature, reassessed in 2020, was more substantial than older reconstructions indicated. Dilophosaurus was in all likelihood an opportunistic hunter that actively pursued mid-sized sauropodomorphs and ornithischians while also being willing to take carrion, much as most large living predators do today. Where the skull crest sat, the bone was fragile. They would have shattered under the impact of a direct blow. This tells us precisely what they were not: weapons. They were signals, to rivals, to potential mates, to any member of the species in visual range. Now, the frill. The venom. The spitting. There is no fossil evidence whatsoever for a retractable neck frill on Dilophosaurus. No skeletal structures that could have supported such a membrane, no muscle attachment points consistent with one, no analogues in any living archosaur lineage. The frill is pure invention. Crichton added it as a dramatic warning display, possibly inspired by the frilled neck lizard of Australia, and Spielberg kept it because it worked visually. Its relationship to the actual animal is non-existent. The venom is even less defensible. There is no confirmed evidence for venomous biting in any theropod dinosaur, and a 6-meter apex predator weighing nearly half a ton had no need for a slow-acting biochemical weapon. Crichton invented the idea, and it entered the cultural bloodstream of the film with a permanence that has outlasted any number of scientific corrections. What remains, once fiction is stripped away, is an animal remarkable enough without embellishment. Picture an early morning on the Kayenta floodplain, roughly 193 million years ago. A male moves along a riverbank, his paired skull crests catching the low angle of early light. Whatever color they carried in life, they were almost certainly visible from a distance. A second male steps out from a stand of conifers. Both are fully grown, both close to the same size, and both carry those structurally delicate crests that would splinter under the force of a direct blow. Animals that fight with their heads do not carry fragile ornaments on them. The two males circle, hold their crests upright, present their bodies side on. After several minutes of slow, charged negotiation, one of them breaks the standoff. Turns away. Disappears between the trees. The winner stands at the water's edge, drinks, and his reflection shows the crests doubled in the river's surface. Dilophosaurus wetherilli was not a footnote between the mass extinction at the end of the Triassic and the giants of the later Jurassic. It was evolution's answer to an open world, a continent without established large predators that suddenly needed one. The first of its kind, an early test of the great theropod body plan that would reach its most famous expression 135 million years later in Tyrannosaurus rex. It had no frill. It spat no venom. But it walked along a riverbank 193 million years ago and left its footprints in the red stone of Arizona, only meters below the fossils of its own bones, and the world, eventually, remembered. That is the real Dilophosaurus. And it needs no poison to be extraordinary.